Hello everyone, my name's Varley and welcome back to the home of EDFL Web TV, the Pascoe Vale Hotel. We'll be coming to you weekly on the EDFL YouTube channel. This season we'll be visiting clubs, so if your club has a significant event coming up, contact us via our social media networks. This week EDFL Web TV has been visiting another of our clubs, so let's throw to Pellizzeri and see what's going on.
Thanks, Claire. Yes, we're here at Martin Reserve, the home of the Hadfield Football Club, for this week's EDFL Web TV, and we're catching up with the Hawks. Of course, they were relegated from Essendon Ford Division 1 last season, but they have got the Strathmore Community Bank Division 2 season off to a flying start with a big win against Jacana. We caught up with Hadfield's new-look coaching staff, and I'll be joined by Adem Saricaoglu and Dave Kennedy to go through all of the week's big talking points around the EDFL on this week's edition of EDFL Web TV.
Hi, we're here with Hadfield's playing coach Raaf. Thanks for being here today with us.
That's right, thanks for having me.
Did you see the round one result coming after your pre-season preparation?
Look, to be honest, I think the result was blown out of proportion a little bit. Last quarter we kicked 8 goals to 1. I think we ran over the top of them slightly. It wasn't really the margin that we ended up winning by was 101. The game wasn't like that. It was probably a bit closer than that. So, look, the margin wasn't a true reflection of the game, but we'll take that and move on to round 2 now.
Yeah. What did go right for your team in the game against Jacana?
Look, I think we stuck to our structures, stuck to our game plan. Every player played their role, which is what we've brought into this team this season. We're 22 contributors, not just the 3 or 4 main players, that everyone's got a role, and I think everyone played their role on the weekend, and that's what brought the result.
How would you describe the balance of responsibility between yourself, the co-coach John Colaidis, and the bench coach Craig Burrows?
Oh, look, well, we've had 4 attempts at it, so the 3 practice games and obviously round 1, and it's gone really well. JC and I, so John, which is JC, we do most of the planning and preparation on a Tuesday and Thursday, which is, and on Saturdays that's when Craig Burrows takes over and does his thing on the sideline. He's come with great credentials. He's coached senior football for 8 seasons, so he knows what it's about, and he's got great respect from our football team. And yeah, look, it's been working really well, and we haven't had to change anything at the moment.
What is the benchmark you and the coaches have set for the team this season?
Top four. So look, we're not coming into this competition assuming we're going to win it, because that would be naive on our behalf. We're just expecting to play finals football, and then you never know what can happen from there, because finals is a funny game.
Jacana came away from Saturday saying that Hadfield is a physical opponent. What would you like your team to be known for? Well
drilled, skillful, physical, hard at the contest, and never give up. Type of football team that play 4 quarters. So look, physical is a compliment to come from Jacana Football Club, because they're a very physical team. And yeah, I thought we matched them at the contest on the weekend, which was fantastic.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Raaf.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for coming down to the football club and giving us an opportunity on EDFL Web TV. Just a quick thank you to Strathmore Community Bank for being a great sponsor of the Division 2 competition, and also the Hadfield Football Club.
Yeah, the off-season started off pretty well. Myself and Raaf took over the coaching reins from Robert Don this year. He was a coach for Hadfield for the last 8 years, which he did pretty well, taking over through a few of the hard times and that. Yeah, basically we started off like going back to recruiting a few players, some past friends and that I had playing with myself, where I came from Roxy. Originally here at Hatfield earlier in the early 2000s. Yeah, we had a lot of people coming back, which was good. Fair few numbers before Christmas, and yeah, sort of like took off a little bit just after Christmas. We started to get a lot more numbers turning up. Our practice games went pretty well. We played Mernda first up in a 6-quarter game up at Mernda. That was pretty even, sort of a hit out. Quite happy with that. Then we played Western Regions Auburn Vale. That was a pretty comfortable win against that. And then we ventured out to Drysdale up in Geelong and played them. They gave us a bit of a touch-up, which was a very good side. Beat us by about 6 or so goals. So yeah, it's been going pretty well, training. Something different to what we've been used to the last few years, but I think the boys have taken it on and yeah, shown plenty of promise. We sort of like came down this year saying that it's not going to be as easy as thinking, you know, we're a Division 1 side going to come in and just take control and sort of like win every game. The boys have stepped up in a sense of they've just taken on board seriously, just through their training, with the numbers turning up and that, and just their commitment to myself and Raaf has been really excellent from the boys, and it sort of like showed after the first week, round 1 that started off on the weekend. Well, the depth is actually pretty, I'd say, probably the best it's ever been this year. last year, obviously, because of our injuries, hit us hard. Just on something on the weekend, we actually took note. We played Jacana, and on our reserves, we had, I think, 11 blokes that played seniors the last half of the year last year that were playing reserves in round 1 this year. We had a few older blokes come back to the club, which a few bigger bodies, because we've always been a younger side. We sort of went out and sort of tried to recruit a few bigger bodies and that to help us out, which showed a lot on the weekend. And the 18 stepped up. They had a comfortable wing on the weekend as well too. So we've got plenty of depth. We've got blokes probably missing out on the weekend as well, which helps out. It's a good position to be in.
On your own coaching style, I guess you're one of 3 doing it as part of a team, and you're a playing coach. What's the adjustment been like for you, and what are some of the things that you are now doing differently as a playing coach that you were doing just as a player?
Well, it's obviously a lot harder because you're trying to do a few things at once. With us, it's a little bit easier when there's me, myself and Raaf. We've also got Craig Burrows on the game day helping us out, who's a past coach of Hadfield and a coach at Rachrache. Has helped us out. Being a player myself the last few years, pretty much all you got to do is just run on the ground, do your bit, and take care, make sure you're doing what the coach instructed over game day sort of thing. But as a player coach, you've sort of got to take a lot more on board, make sure, keep an eye on everything. The game plan's going according to what you've been trying to teach in the off season. Obviously on top of mentoring the young fellas and things like that as well. So it has been something a little bit different, but so far so good. Can't complain. It's been working really well. The players have really stood by us, and they help out a lot as well. So yeah, that's been really good on the positive side.
6-7 minutes, we'll finish off.
Maybe out the groups, jog it out.
And so to the discussion panel of this week's EDFL Web TV, joined by Adem, Saricaoglu and Dave Kennedy from EDFL Radio. Guys, we've got a lot of talking points to get through from a bumper first week of Strathmore Community Bank Premier Division. So let's start with the big talking point as voted by the fans on essendondfl.com.au. Pascoe Vale smashing Avondale Heights. It was quite an alarming scoreline, 11-10-76 to 25-13, 163. Adem, we'll start with you. What did you make of this show of force from Pascoe Vale in their first outing of the season?
Well, it's quite a remarkable change considering they haven't changed coach, just exactly the culture change that has happened down at Rayburn Reserve. We're all taken aback by Teo, and we're expecting a pretty good year from Pascoe Vale, but to come up against a contender first up and do that to them is quite remarkable. So we might just have to start paying a bit more attention and respect to Pascoe Vale.
Now, Dave, Kyle Hardingham played. The target is that he plays 4 games and does get qualified for finals. He was quite dominant in defence. Not named in the best players, though. It was predominantly midfielders named in the best for Pascoe Vale. Ben Warren kicked 6 goals, so did Jake Pellizzeri in the Pascoe Vale forward line. But, Dave, I want to ask you about Avondale Heights and how they react to this defeat. They certainly weren't expecting to come in and get blown away like that. In fact, they were coming in expecting to win. And their coach, Saricaoglu, called a 6 a.m. training session on Sunday as a bit of punishment and a wake-up call for the team. And Ghazi said didn't want to take anything away from Paco, but it was the worst performance he'd seen in his time at Avondale Heights. So what do you make of that response there from Avondale after their first round hiding?
Yeah, it's really interesting, Teo, that we're talking about 2 dominant forwards in a match involving Avondale Heights, and it's not Rose and Galea, it's Warren and Pellizzeri. And I think that Saricaoglu has good reason to be very disappointed. They are a very well-rated list going into the season. No, Chief, they're your pick for the flag, so you wouldn't have given that out lightly. They're expected to do really well, and this would be a really disappointing result for the club. Well,
that was the result at Avondale Heights. Let's move on to the next big talking point, and unfortunately this is really bad news, guys, and I'll get both your opinions on it. Nat Caruso, who suffered an injury scare in a practice match the week before the EDFL's interleague game. The scan results are back, and it is the worst confirmed fears. He needs a full knee reconstruction, and if you're watching this on Thursday or after Thursday, then that surgery has already taken place. And the Northern Saints captain and the captain of the 2014 EDFL Interleague team, and also the captain of the Team of the Year, as was named in 2014, is now gone for the rest of the season. Adem, Saricaoglu, it is a bitter blow to the Northern Saints off the back of a 3-figure loss to West Coburg at the weekend.
Not only for the Saints, but for the entire league. I really do feel Nat Caruso is definitely in the top 2 or 3 players in the whole competition. So that is an absolutely massive loss, and I know later in the show we'll get stuck into what the Northern Saints were able to put out on the weekend, and to think that they're not going to have Nat for the entire year now That is absolutely horrible news. Hopefully for Nat though, he can get better. Obviously, hopefully the surgery does go well and he can get back on his feet sooner rather than later.
And Dave, this is a player universally respected, not just around EDFL but local footy and the Sandford where he'd played previously as well. This is just a devastating blow for the Northern Saints.
Oh, it's devastating. As you said, they were completely outclassed on the weekend by the team that is incumbent in Premier Division. It was really disappointing the way that Northern Saints played. And looking through the best players, Bilal Alouche at West Meadows in the best players, I just sort of feel like Nat Caruso out for the season. It's just totally compounded by the result on the weekend.
Well, you mentioned the result. It was way below Strathmore Community Bank Premier Division standard, at least as far as what we were able to see. Digby Morell actually bristled at the suggestion that Northern Saints weren't very good. I think, what was it, a level above insipid was his response to your question there, Adam. But I'm sure we certainly didn't mean to insinuate that West Coburg fell over the line. I mean, they won by more than 100 points in the end, 139 to 27. Where do you see these two teams going? How far can West Coburg go? Digby Morell said that his team's been written off as rubbish out the back of the top 6 in Premier Division. So where do you think West Coburg can go this season?
Look, I was hearing some talk post-game that people were at the game, perhaps a few colleagues of mine that shall remain nameless, that West Coburg weren't that good on Saturday. You don't win by over 100 points having a bad day. Yeah, obviously you do have to take into account that the Northern Saints basically did not show up, and I will agree with that, but still, West Coburg did what they had to do there. They got their job done, moved the ball really well. It's a good confidence booster for them as well. So I've walked away from Coburg City Oval on Saturday thinking that West Coburg can definitely knock off some teams this season and maybe pinch a couple wins that some people weren't expecting. I don't know about you, Dave, but that's how I feel. I actually feel like that West Coburg couldn't have got off to a better start.
I'm going to fence it, Chief. I think that it really wasn't a test. I think that Northern Saints, unfortunately, were the big story out of the weekend. I just thought that they were terrible, that they lacked depth in the midfield, up forward and in defence. So I'm going to hold my opinion until West Coburg comes up against someone else.
All right, well, let's move on to our next set of talking points, and they are in Essendon Ford at Division 1. And there was one scoreline that stood out above all the others. Jack Pascoe kicked 7 best on ground and led Oak Park to an absolutely stunning 129 points to 31 win against Hillside. And that was Hillside missing Rocky Ferraro, but otherwise with all their other recruits in, with many of their name players from the 2013 Premiership there, and also with a couple of their Western Jets boys. And then that makes it even more confounding, because when we saw the score come through on Saturday, it already made no sense, and then to see the team sheet, it makes it even more hard to believe.
I'm getting more and more suspicious of what is going on down at Oak Park at the moment, Tayo. They're being a little bit secretive for mine. They seem to have improved out of sight. We did not hear a word in the pre-season, and they're usually a club that's pretty open with us in the media team anyway. We have not heard a thing from Oak Park, so look, they're obviously chugging along quite nicely. It's a good start. Obviously the question marks do go on to Hillside, but right now Oak Park, they feel like they're going to start coming back. They're only 2 years removed from Premier Division, so they'll be wanting to hopefully get back up there eventually after what was a pretty disappointing season last year. So I want to see the Kangaroos live. I just want to see what they bring to the table, because I think there's something covert going on down there at the moment.
Well, Dave, I want to ask you about a much closer game out at Lionheart Reserve. Taylors Lakes hosting West Meadows, and West Meadows able to get over the line. It was goal for goal all day. They had a couple of arm wrestles last year and a really entertaining elimination final, which Taylors Lakes won. So what do you make of West Meadows starting their season with an important win and just getting a little bit of revenge for the team that knocked them out of last year's finals?
Yeah, as you mentioned, it was, I guess, the match for redemption for West Meadows, and they got over the line, and not despite some good efforts up forward from Mehmedi once again, who seems to be, I guess, telling the Division 1 competition that he's going to be a genuine option up forward for Taylors Lakes. But a great start for West Meadows, as I said. Billy Alouche in the best for his new side, so good to see him slip in there, and maybe they're going to knock some sides off again this year at West Meadows.
And the closest game of the weekend was just the 1 point, and Craigieburn holding on to beat Glenroy after a big comeback. Adam, we spoke about this in the radio post-game show at the weekend. We saw the scores coming through, and it was 7-1 at quarter time. It looked as though the new dawn at Craigieburn had started with a bang, and yet Glenroy Glenroy drew level in the final quarter, and Craigieburn able to crawl over the line by the solitary point, which probably leaves us with more questions than answers about both teams, I would have thought.
Yeah, I spoke to some people that were at the game, Teo, and they said it was an absolute cracker. So a good way to start the season for those two clubs. And yeah, look, I won't say I'm too surprised. I mean, Craigieburn go in as favourites. They go in as a contender this year in Division 1, and perhaps not so much for Glenroy, but they certainly think that they're a shot as well. So not so surprised that Craigieburn came out slightly ahead of Glenroy. That probably adds up with pre-season expectations.
And the last talking point on this week's agenda, they come from Division 2 and our hosts right here at Hadfield Football Club. They were really a cut above Jacana at the weekend. I understand that in the third quarter, Jacana had a kick on goal to reduce the margin to 14 points. They didn't kick a goal, they kicked a point, and then Hadfield kicked about 8 or 9 unanswered thereafter, including absolutely powering away in the final term. So the scoreline may be a little bit misleading. I know that the Hadfield coaches who we heard from as part of Web TV were keen to just try and pad the brakes after winning by such a big margin in the opening weekend. But Jacana, we thought they were going to be better than that, Adam, and a little bit surprising, maybe reflective of the fact that we just didn't show enough respect to the team coming down from Essendon Ford Division 1.
I don't think we did, and walking into the place tonight, Teo, there might have been one or two looks coming towards us after watching the pre-season shows, and neither of us tipping Hadfield. I don't know what your tip was, Dave, for Division 2, but perhaps we should have paid a bit more attention to Hadfield. And yeah, look, they got the job done, but obviously Jacana, that might take a bit of time coming into the season, but you do feel like they'll eventually get going. But certainly a great start for Hadfield. And look, we've never seen a team come down from Division 2 before. This was the first time that we've had relegation out of Div 1 ever. So we don't really have much of a guide to go by, but it does seem there is a fair gulp right now between Division 2 and Division 1.
Dave, we saw the worst of Hadfield at the end of last season when it all fell apart, but now it's a fresh start, fit players again after the off-season and new faces, and it seems as though the club has really taken relegation well and is keen to make a statement that even though they've dropped down a division, no one is walking any shorter here. They're still going to show a lot of pride and fight hard.
It's a great vibe down here at Hadfield today, and as you mentioned, the extra fitness, you mentioned the scoreboard as well. Well, speaking to Raaf Rachrache just before the coach, he mentioned that maybe a few timekeeping errors on the weekend. They had quarters upwards of 35 minutes, so that wouldn't have done the fitness any harm. They're going to be fitter for the run, as you'd say, in horse racing, and it was on a warm day, as we all know, on Saturday, so a little bit of extra fitness for the Hadfield boys ahead of round 2.
And the other big talking point out of Division 2 was the twilight game out at Keilor Park and Roxburgh Park, kicking away to win comfortably in the end, 100 points to 53, so almost doubling the Keilor Park score in the end. And the standout thing for me was that it was Adrian McKinnon and Tim Blacker, the first two names in the best. Of course, Blacker wasn't there in last year's grand final. McKinnon had to go and play in the forward line. Now it looks as though they've got their bookends back at either end of the field, the centre-half back from the team of the year and the centre-half forward from the team of the year. And Adam, that's a really good sign for Roxburgh Park that they've had such an impressive win, and that's Keilor Park, even with their recruits Sam Sarkis and Fab Delezia, I think contributing 6 of those 8 goals in the end.
Yeah, look, they needed to fill a void, Roxburgh Park, after losing Mickelson, who seems to be the theme this week, unfortunately, knee recos, but they need to fill that void. It looks like McKinnon has done that. I wasn't quite impressed with what he was able to bring to the table last year when Roxy went on that great run. As far as the result itself is concerned, though, probably not too surprised at this stage. We're not expecting a whole heap from Keilor Park this year. They might sneak into the finals, but Roxy, if they want to contend again, they need to be getting results like this, and pretty much a stock standard game, that twilight game down at Keilor Park.
And Dave, I'll give you a free hit at any of the other results. Maybe East Sunbury scoring 48 points against Coburg Districts, who ended up winning quite comfortably, 115 to 48. But hopefully that's a good sign for East Sunbury for things to come, because we all got pretty excited to see Burnside Heights up by a point at quarter time against Moonee Valley, and they kicked 5 goals for the rest of the day, and Moonee Valley kicked about 15. So they absolutely pulled away and won quite comfortably after that. But I don't know, the two expansion teams maybe just getting a little bit more comfortable taking on the bigger teams in Division 2. Yeah,
as you mentioned, they've got to continue their development as the expansion clubs, and they need to continue to build on that. Maybe 48 points is a good result for them, and I'm sure that they'll continue to build on that. But for me, you said free hit. I'm going to go with Roxy Park once again, they're my tip for the flag this year, and I think it's really good when the team that loses in the grand final last week starts the year with a win. It's a positive start. They'll be obviously looking to go one step further this season.
Well, that's it for all the big talking points for EDFL Web TV this week. Keep an eye on the EDFL YouTube channel because we will have our preview of round 2 coming up later in the week. For now, thank you to the Hadfield Football Club for being our hosts, and on behalf of Claire Varley, Adem Saricaoglu and Dave Kennedy, my name's Pellizzeri. Keep it right here on the EDFL YouTube channel.
That's the end of this edition of EDFL Web TV. Make sure to check out the EDFL YouTube channel for more videos. I'm Claire Varley, and we'll see you back here at the Pascoe Vale Hotel soon.